Hello, my friends. I can't wait to talk to you about what's happening in this news cycle right now because I was looking at the Drudge Report today. And it talks about it's the Conway Show. Trump opens fire on George Kellyanne's husband, claps back, reveals private conversations. Oh boy, this is the news we are in. So if you don't know the story here, there's the president. Now, Kellyanne Conway was the first female, she doesn't get credit for this, first female campaign manager to actually assist a president and a candidate across the finish line. Now, her husband, George, has been having a constant problem with the president. And to me, this is like so bizarre. Why would you embarrass your spouse by picking a fight with the president when your wife is working there? Well, we have a little bit of insight. It comes from Brad Parscale. Now, Brad, you might remember, is the genius behind the social media strategy and the advertising for Trump's election. Because remember, Trump just did rallies and Facebook, basically. And contrary to what people think, it wasn't Russia, it was Brad that actually was the partner that Trump was working with. And he wrote this, and the president endorsed it. Brad says, we all know that Donald Trump turned down Mr. Kellyanne Conway for a job he desperately wanted. Here we go again. You notice, like Mueller, these people in Washington, if you don't give them what they want, it's like in other days, they wouldn't attack you, but because Trump is an open target, everybody attacks him. So then he goes on to say he desperately wanted the job. He barely worked at the Justice Department and was either fired or quit. Now, that's an interesting little piece of red meat there. He was either fired or he quit, and because he didn't want the scrutiny. Now he hurts his wife because he's jealous of her success. Ooh, we're getting into some real interesting tabloid material here. Is he jealous of his wife's success and the president doesn't even know it? Well, Donald Trump, in typical conciliatory fashion, comments on it and says he's a total loser. Well, the idea that perhaps George is jealous of his wife's status and her success, this is why tabloids are so interested in this coverage. But you got to know about it. You got to know the back end story. So George writes back his rebuttal. Congratulations. You just guarantee that millions of more people are going to learn about narcissistic personality disorder and malignant narcissism. So evidently George has been doing he's doing a study on the diagnostic criteria from the Minnesota Multiphasic Research on mental disorders. And so he's saying that anytime you have a person with a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, a need for admiration, look at these issues here, has a grandiose sense of self-importance, preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited power and brilliance, believes that they are very special and unique, requires excessive admiration, has a sense of entitlement, is interpersonally exploitive and lacks empathy. According to the Minnesota Multiphasic, this is a diagnostic criteria for someone who's a narcissist or an HBO comedian. So Bill Maher would be the classic narcissist, in my opinion. Now, Bill last week, I just saw it like only a half hour ago. Bill went off. I mean, he went off the sanity reservation and just went bonkers on evangelicals, on Christians, and the Cyrus comparison. And it's crazy. This is a Jewish guy, and he doesn't even know who the heck Cyrus is. So we got to deal with Bill separately. He's like a special category of problem. But what I want you to think about is the diagnostic criteria. See, this is the argument the left keeps wanting to make, that the president is unhinged, the president is derailed, the president is not mentally fit for office. Meanwhile, the president continues to be president because they didn't beat him. And this is what drives them crazy. I think he's got a remarkable sense of self-composure in the presence of all of the sharks that attack him constantly. So anyway, we have this Bill's slightly dangerous crystal. The Republicans down here at the bottom who have been inclined to acquiesce in a Trump renomination in 2020. Read his tweets this morning. Think seriously about his mental condition. These are the never Trumpers. These are the moronic part of the swamp in the Republican Party that can't see that this guy, the president's pulled out of the Paris climate deal. He's renegotiating trade all over the globe. He put the embassy into Jerusalem out of Tel Aviv. He is the only guy that's dealing with the border invasion that is taking place, and he's made the GDP up to 3 to 4%. And for what are they wanting to remove him from office? For sheer animus, because they cannot stand the fact that he beat them. So you got George here saying that he wants to see all Americans thinking seriously now about Trump's mental condition. So if you can't beat him with the Mueller report, if you can't beat him with the Russia scandal, if you don't have urinating prostitutes on his bed, if you can't come up with some deep state fable that nails him, what they're going to come up with now is a sanity issue. But I'm going to tell you, I think George Conway is the guy that really needs the intervention. I think he's coming unglued. And I think he should leave his wife alone. Now, these guys need a trip. They need desperately to go on a vacation. And I'm encouraging them, and in fact, I'm encouraging all of us to take a pause. And join us on a dream trip in 2019. It's going to be May 23rd through 26th in San Diego. My wife Annabelle and I are going to be hosting this time, and it's literally in Paradise, San Diego. I think it would be great for couples to come, career couples especially, because there's nothing like the stress of trying to be the best and at the same time maintaining a great, intimate, empathic, romantic relationship with your spouse. So I'm encouraging all of you to come join us, and perhaps even these guys are going to join us in our 2019 dream trip. It's the Extreme Dream Trip, if you want to go check it out. Now, it would be remiss of me not to cover this today. I've got to get this in there. Joe Scarborough, what is it with liberals? What is it with these guys in media that they all consider themselves to be theological titans? They're all Thomas Aquinas all of a sudden. Every one of them can fathom the depths of theology, and they're into psychology, and they're understanding the perplexities of incongruence in the evangelical community, because Scarborough constantly has this mental derangement problem with Trump. So here's the latest deal with Scarborough. He thinks, according to MSNBC and Fox, it's in the news right there, he's taking things to a whole biblical level during a discussion regarding the evangelical. These guys can't handle the fact that evangelicals support Donald Trump. How can they possibly do that? It's like if they can only break us, that's what they want to do, because they just feel like, why can you support him? Evangelical Christians remain loyal to this man, and again, there's nothing consistent with the teachings of Jesus. Look at, here they go. They're going to instruct all the evangelicals now on theology, which is the height of narcissistic personality disorder. I'm telling you, this is a syndrome in the progressive community. And when I say nothing, I mean absolutely nothing. The Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, especially the story of the Good Samaritan. This is the problem with people that have paperback Christianity, like the 101. All they have is a cartoon version of what Christianity actually is. The gospel isn't about trying to match Jesus's niceness. That's not what Christianity is. It's not about the Beatitudes. It's not about the Sermon on the Mount or the Good Samaritan. It's actually about having an encounter with Jesus and recognizing your own moral bankruptcy. It's like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's about admitting that you're a sinner and that you can't save yourself. But you look at what, here we're going to go. Joe's going to educate us here. Thomas Aquinas is back. Look at that, which is basically the cornerstone of Jesus' ministry. The fact that Donald Trump is still saying he doesn't need to be forgiven by Jesus. He's never once needed to be. It's the antithesis. What the heck is Joe Scarborough talking about? Have you been with the president? This knucklehead. This is so annoying. We've been there. I've been there. And you know what? Some of the most charming things about Donald Trump is the fact that he is an unashamed real person. So, for instance, I remember one time a group of pastors were in a room, and he heard they were there next door, and so he says, hey, I'm going to go over there where the real power is. And they said, you want us to pray for you? And he says this. He said, yeah, I've sinned more than any of you today, that's for sure. So here's a guy that is authentic enough to say, you know, if his attitude is bad, or if he's angry, if he's cussing, he knows what sin is. Don't you guys remember when he had the dreaded video scenario that came out? What was that called again? The Access Hollywood video. Thank you. And I said it right then when it happened, before the election. I said, well, here's the interesting thing. Donald Trump couldn't think of a sin he had to repent of when he met with the evangelicals before the election, but now he has one. And I was trying to figure out what's good about this situation. And sure enough, Trump apologized because he had to own it. See, these guys are like modern day Pharisees. They strain at gnats and they swallow camels. And so, of course, the data's out with polling now, and Scarborough just can't handle it. This is interesting, because any time that the left wants to divide America, they always go to race, race, race. It's white people. And, you could be talking about church attendance in the African-American community, or church, or the demographic that is more likely to read the Bible every day happens to be, believe it or not, African Americans read the Bible more every day than white people. But you won't see those kind of quotes, because what they'd rather do is talk about white evangelical Protestants. It's kind of like, we're just going to keep on going after white evangelical Protestants. And if you really want to hit the male patriarchy, go after white evangelical Protestant males. And if you really want to nail them, go after white evangelical Protestant male heterosexuals. So anyway, the data is that they simply support Trump. And the left can't. Why? Why do they support him? Well, they found that white evangelical Protestants in the United States continue to this just outrages them in media. Bill Maher and, these Stephen Colbert, they just can't understand it. Well, the fact of the matter is that there's the data over there if you're interested, if you're data inclined. And here's the irony of the data, that Republicans are overwhelmingly more likely to have faith in God and go to church than Democrats. I'm not knocking all you Democrats out there. I'm just telling you, the data, you want to put another graph up here. Let's talk about how many liberals actually read the Bible and go to church. They don't have that white liberal data. So here's something about Jesus I want to talk about, because I think even the Christians are confused. And I want to wrap this segment up in a different way than normal. Because you heard what Scarborough says, the characteristic summary of a Christian to the Bill Mahers and the Scarboroughs and these guys is keeping the Ten Commandments and the Good Samaritan. They don't recognize that those moral imperatives are matched by an equally intense and at times abrasive messianic figure. Jesus wasn't crucified because he was a nice guy. He was crucified because he was a political threat. He was perceived to be a populist movement facilitator. And so you have moments like this when Jesus actually addresses the modern day teachers, educators, and what we would call today the academicians or the media pundits who take it upon themselves to educate the rest of humanity and educate the United States. And he says to them, look, make the tree good in its fruit. This is Jesus, by the way. Or make the tree bad in its fruit bad. A tree is recognized by its fruit. You brood of vipers. How can you who are evil say anything good? Now that doesn't sound to me like the Good Samaritan Jesus talking. But this is also Jesus. He says a good man brings things out of the good that's stored up on the inside of him, and an evil man brings up the evil. What is he saying? He's saying that evil people, and you got to watch this, evil people actually hate evangelicals and they despise Donald Trump. It's like almost a consistency. I can just feel the agitation bubbling up in people watching this right now. Here's another great Bible verse you can put on your refrigerator. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You shut the kingdom of heaven up in people's faces, and you're not even going in yourselves, and you're not allowing the people that want to go in to get in. Who's he talking about? He's talking about the people that stand at the gate of influence and pontificate and redirect traffic all day away from God and into the narrative of their own particular unbelief. I'll give you one more verse because I just love these edifying Bible verses. Woe to you, for you're like unmarked graves. He's just continuing with the Pharisees. But then look at this line here. This is interesting. Look at this right here. Teacher, when you say these things, you insult us as well. What jumped out to me today when I saw that is they understood that there was an insult just delivered. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a random bad tweet at 2 a.m. that the Messiah shouldn't have sent out. This is an insult because part of being a Christian is having the prophetic courage to be able to draw a line between what is right and wrong and good and evil and true and false. The challenge is, while they're crucifying you, you say, Father, forgive them. They haven't got a clue what they're doing. And or like Stephen, as he's getting stoned, Father, lay not this sin to their charge. In other words, the difference between a Christian, the way that modern people are making Jesus and a Christian to be, and the real Christian, is that the real Christian does go to war in the battle of ideas, but they don't do it out of a sense of bruised ego. And they are charitable in their treatment of humanity because they themselves are prone to sin and they need a Savior. So somehow we've got Jesus said, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. I think the Christian community has the harmless part down. Maybe it's time we started being wise as serpents. And that's why I'm encouraging you once again to join us on our San Diego Paradise Point dream trip, because I have to keep myself buoyant. I have to keep myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and relationally healthy. And as you can imagine, when you're in this kind of dealing with the toxins, you have to actually keep yourself super healthy so you could be showing up in a resourceful state. The dream trip, the extreme dream trip to Paradise Point, San Diego, is going to be the time when we're working on the most exciting moment in Christian history. I'm telling you, Donald Trump has created a reset. And there is an opening in your life right now for the dreams that God has given you. This is a great moment. The Apostle Paul said this. He said, "A great door and very effectual is open to me, and there are many adversaries." I have a word for you. Don't focus on the adversaries. Focus on the open door that God's giving you. In Paradise Point, we're going to be sharpening the blueprints of people's vision. We're going to be refining strategies for how people are achieving the things that they want to do. We've got entrepreneurs, business people, financiers of kingdom enterprises who are going to be here. We have politicians and entertainers and journalists and lawyers. In other words, in all the 7 Mountain stuff that I teach, this is where we all get together and we literally refine the strategies to be able to achieve remarkable dreams. Jesus said, "I want you to bring forth much fruit." So I encourage you to join us in the garden. My wife, me, and my team of selected speakers are going to be meeting together with you, and are going to meet one of the most remarkable networks of people you've ever met in your entire life. The people that come in from around the world of the dream trips are a dream team. I look forward to talking to you in our next broadcast.